Hey guys, my guest for today writes for Vogue and for Glamour Magazine. I'm talking about Samya HAFSAOUI. Yes, am I pronouncing it right?
Yeah, you are actually.
Okay.
You're like one of the only people.
Really?
Yeah.
Thank you.
There you
Well,
go.
no, Samya, I'm really happy to have you here. And by the way, so cool that you write for Glamour Magazine as well.
Yeah, it's now it's been Vogue, it's been Glamour, it's been Cosmopolitan, it's been Linda Meijer. So I've almost
Wow.
heard kind of all of the big fashion magazines, which is really, really cool.
Really cool.
Yeah.
And what do you mainly write about? Because I'm going to write for a Glamour magazine as well, very soon. And yeah, so I'm really interested in what are you going to write about?
It's mainly just interviews.
Okay. So
So
you
I've-
interview
yeah.
other people.
Yeah, so for Glamour I did Emilia Clarke, who was Khaleesi in Game of Thrones, and then I did Mark Ronson, and for Vogue I did Lizzo and Jamila Jamil. And for
Do
Cosmopolitan,
you get to select the people you want to write?
sometimes
Or? Okay.
I can email them and go, hey, I've been thinking about, speaking to this person, and then either they say, oh, that's, a quinky dink because we've had this collaboration.
Yeah.
For example, with Emilia Clarke, she was the new face of a big skincare brand, and they were like, we know that you asked us if we could help you with arranging that, and now we get her in our mailbox, and now we're like, that's going to go to Samya. But with Lizzo, it was a kind of, I wanted to interview her, and Vogue was like, us as well.
That is so cool.
But then sometimes, like Jamila Jamil, I reached out to her publisher, and they were like, yes, of course, that would be really nice. So it really depends on circumstance. But that being said, I'm really lucky in the people that I get to interview.
Yeah.
For example, Billie
100%.
Eilish was here in Utrecht last year, January, I think. It seems like so long ago because this
'Cause
year
of the
has been
COVID
going
of
on
it.
forever.
Yeah, I know.
And kind of nobody knew who she was over here. And that changed in a matter of months. And for me to kind of have spoken to her when she was playing a tiny, tiny venue,
Yeah.
and then now she could have done arenas, that's crazy.
Crazy. Well, before we start with our conversation, I have these cards that I would like to introduce to you.
Yeah.
These are the Stories of Young cards. And we designed these cards basically to start conversations. Most of the time when you meet somebody the first time, it's like, okay, where do
Break
we...
the ice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
break the
yeah.
ice. Exactly. These are our icebreakers. And I selected 3 questions that I really want to know of you. So you can pick one card and answer the question.
This is exciting. Okay. What was your dream job as a kid? Would that kid be happy with where you are now? Very much so. I was the kind of child that grabbed an A4 piece of paper and then folded it into, and then did that a bunch of times. And then with a needle and thread, I'd stitch the paper together and pretend I had a book.
Oh, wow.
And then I could write in it. I had and I made it kind of wavy and all pretty, and I put glitter on it. And now I've written my first novel, so that kid would be very, very happy. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And we're definitely going to talk about your novel, but that's really cool that you're doing what you always wanted to do. Well, obviously we met during the Roots Festival.
Yes, we did.
I saw you a few times because, you've been one of the faces of Young De Wereld Draait Door, and you've done some other things, but I didn't know of you. So we were together in a panel talk, and it was about the third culture kids, which I never heard of before they reached out to me. For the people who don't know what the third culture kid term means, it basically means that if you were born, if your parents, help me a little bit, but if your parents are from another country from where you were born, right? So basically biculture.
If you're bicultural and then you have this identity from the culture you're born in, or the country you're born in, and then you kind of have this third culture of being a bicultural child, as in your parents' culture, the culture from the country you're born in,
and
but then who are you?
Yeah.
And that's the third culture.
That's the third culture kids. So we are third culture kids.
Yeah.
And did you know of the term before they reached out to you? Because I didn't.
I knew about code switching, which is the phenomena of changing your personality based on the language you're speaking.
Okay, so that's exactly what triggered me, because that panel talk was in Dutch. It was in Compagnie Theater. We were speaking Dutch, and they were talking about code switching, which I also never heard of. But also code switching is, that we can quickly, third culture kids can quickly code switch. Yeah, we assimilate to the
person we're speaking to, the situation, the workplace.
Yeah. And I've always wanted to live in London. So when you were talking and you were like, yeah, I can code switch. I'm like, whoa, I was so impressed. So tell me about this code switching, because also for the people watching this or listening to us now, they're like, whoa, does she lives in the Netherlands? Like, yes, you do. You're
Yes,
Dutch,
I do. Yeah,
but
I'm
your
very
English
much
is
Dutch.
so on point. So
Thank you so much.
can you tell me about that?
For me, growing up, because my dad is from Morocco, my mum's born in the Netherlands, and I was this kind of mix of both of them, and I found my peers online. And I feel like knowing the English language, especially when you're from a country that has a very unique language, not a lot of people speak Dutch. And so the information you have, if you only speak Dutch, is very limited.
Yes.
And also people's perceptions of you are very limited, in the sense that people don't tend to be a big fan of Moroccan people
in the Netherlands.
due to representation.
Yeah.
And so to me, knowing English and being able to step into this different personality was to see myself reflected in other people more often. So when I watched English TV shows, or if I spoke to people from different countries, I was like, hey, you also have this same problem of you don't know who you are.
Yeah.
Your parents are from a different place. This kind of shared immigrant experience that a lot of kids have, my parents don't say I love you to me. And it's like, oh, that's normal. I was about to call Child Protective Services because I thought my parents were really weird, but your parents are the same thing. And it was this discovery of my parents, of my dad came here, and moving to a different country is difficult. And kind of
were you born here?
Yeah, I was.
Obviously,
but then moving to London for 8 months and then America for 3, with the knowledge of the culture, and my dad just coming, to Holland, not really knowing anything about culture or language, and to respect his trauma and to find resources in English that explain to me that trauma, that experience, things like code switching, third culture kids. You feel seen. And in Holland, we tend to be behind a bit in positive representation. So for me, I was able to take these things in English and this personality I built up in English and translate that into Dutch.
Whoa, I can relate so much to this because, as for me, my parents are Ghanaian. I'm Ghanaian too. They were born there, came here. I was born in the Netherlands, but I always felt connected to the English culture, like British and American culture. And
a much larger Ghanaian community as well.
And for me it was more like I looked up to the people there. I could connect with them when I was traveling. We had all these similar things. I'm like, whoa, okay, this is also, I always say it in every episode, but this is one of the reasons why this podcast is in English, because like you said, speaking Dutch is limited. I don't really feel like I'm understood here. And when I heard the term third culture kid, I'm like, that's it. That's who I am.
Our experience is very much a shared experience, and English provides that connection with other people.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of words that we use to express our emotion that don't exist in Dutch.
Exactly.
Privilege, certain kinds of fragility, certain kinds of phenomena, like third culture kids.
Yeah.
The Dutch conversation is not there yet, or the Dutch public awareness is not there yet.
So how do you experience that as working for a Dutch
magazine or TV channel?
Exactly. Yeah.
To me, it's a lot of translating English language articles to them.
Really?
So these conversations that are being had by Variety, Deadline, Forbes, all of these things, it feels like I have to invent the wheel sometimes, but I don't. There's people before me, there's people after me that are having these very tough, rough conversations about privilege and racism and discrimination and representation and all of these things, heteronormativity in movies, all that. But it is very much taking these research papers and these articles and saying, this exists. Yeah. You just don't know how to look because you don't look for them in English. So it is, for me, very much a language thing.
Yeah.
There's this thing called eloquent anger.
Never heard of that.
This phenomena where, forget me, but I forgot who invented it. But it's this thing of, as a person of color, you have to be eloquently angry.
Okay, I get it. Yeah.
Your frustration has to be presented in this kind of box with a bow on it, going.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're
The angry black woman, or you're the aggressor, or you're being difficult or unprofessional.
So we
like
always have to think about how you
present your pain. Speaking of movies, Black history didn't begin with slavery.
No, true.
Moroccan history didn't begin with people dealing drugs.
Yeah.
It's crazy how
we're constantly educating people,
constantly educating for free.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be for free. Lived experience and being well educated in this racialized society is as much of an expertise as the next thing. So for me, my work is explaining, and also explaining why my work is not free.
And I feel like that's the hardest part about the time that we're living in now, that we're constantly explaining. It's tiring sometimes. Like I have my own creative agency, so I help brands, like I consult brands on these things as well. But then sometimes they reach out and they're like, oh, we want to work with you on this, or we want to become more diverse, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually it's always about, okay, but how much is it going to cost? We want to know before we can help. So it's so tiring. And then I've also seen on your social media that you also push this, you speak about this on social media a lot. And especially with people with a huge following or who are known on TV or whatever, are quite scared sometimes to speak up on these issues. Yeah. So you do this online, but also offline. Yeah. How does this affect your work and with like the people you work with?
Everything I do, because these conversations or these remarks, like your Dutch is so good, you are so professional, you act white. Yeah. These are things that are being said to us even if we don't want to be hyper aware of our identity. Yeah. So no matter what you do, we can just be in a room breathing and people can just throw these very racialized, Islamophobic or sexist things towards us. So I was like, this happens to me anyway. Yeah. I might as well educate myself on how to address this and how to explain this and also get paid for it. Yeah. Because this happens anyway. And if I can provide a safer space for my coworkers, for my colleagues, then I will do so. Because I want to take away that emotional labor. I want to take away that guilt, the trouble, the hurt, the feeling. Just like the term emotional labor. Yeah. That is something you can't explain in Dutch because people have not invented the word for that phenomena. For the people that don't know, emotional labor is when you are constantly being asked to justify or explain or have this kind of humble attitude towards your existence, basically. This Black people in the workplace have their job and also curing all the racism. Yeah. And you have to explain all these things.
We're doing everything.
Everything. Like, oh, Samya, do you have a good couscous recipe? Or Samya, why is this? Explain to us terrorism. Yeah. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm just here
Go and look it up
I'm just
yourself.
Writing a story. Yeah. Like, can't you just go? And it's constantly this othering. This reminding you that you are not there just for you. You are there also in all of these identities and all of these boxes that they put you in.
So would you like to, because I met a girl a few months ago and she also writes for a Dutch newspaper, and she was saying that she specifically wants to write about Black people and Black issues and Black people celebrating or whatever. She specifically Is that something that, so you feel like, no, you want to write about everything, or do you also feel, even though you feel responsible about changing certain narratives?
It's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword. Because if you don't do it, they will either not do it or do it for you.
They will do it for you, yeah. And
not with you, but about you. And we know how dangerous and how, problematic that can be or is, basically. But also you don't want to be pegged in this box of, but you can't do anything else. Yeah. So it's for me, it's a kind of balancing between who am I as a person that loves pop culture, loves music, loves musical theatre, loves all of these things outside of my ethnicity or religious beliefs, but also fighting and advocating for authentic voices. Yeah. So I would like to talk about hijab for once. I would like to, but then also realizing that if I speak on hijab, then people will think I am the be all end all.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, I am not the Moroccan woman.
Yeah.
I am a bicultural woman.
Yeah, we have to
I'm not
normalize
the.
those things.
Exactly.
But then again, we are probably, or maybe, how can I say, in this time, everything we do, we're still often one of the first.
Yeah.
So it's quite hard to say that we don't want to be that person, because eventually that's, if you're leading in something, you're going to be that person, right? But it's also really good, like you said, to show other sides and sometimes even reject things.
And we need to take people with us.
Yeah.
And that's also a form of emotional labor, you know, kind of realizing our ancestors and our peers and going, I don't want to be the first, and I can be the first, because a lot of people were tired.
Yeah.
A lot of people were fired.
I can relate. Yeah.
A lot of people were, you know, being played out. And now with the power of social media, we can raise and lift up each other's voices and our own.
Yeah.
If I now put an email online of someone from a program that has sent me the most ridiculous request.
Do you reject it?
But the question is, do I expose this? Do I risk my job?
Ooh, yeah.
Or do I trust that people will read this and go, we will stand with you?
Okay, so this is a really good one with the exposing part. I always have
it's kind of
because recently I experienced something, and I'm not going to obviously
name.
Yeah, I'm not going to name it or expose him now, but I was in a magazine, and I thought it was a really beautiful page, but a few minutes later, once they released it, I got an email saying, oh, like, we love this page that we created from you, but we didn't want to portray you as a activist or a Black Panther person. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Where does this come from? Because for me, when I looked at the page, it was a beautiful page.
Yeah.
I did not see Black Panther. I did not see an activist or whatever. So the person that created that page saw that because of how she looks at a Black woman.
Yeah.
When I wear certain things, I'm being perceived as ghetto.
If you wear a black beret, if you wear braids.
Because that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Black Panther.
Automatically, just like, that's it. Yeah.
That's it. So I had to literally take a moment when I read that email, because I know her intentions were right. Her intentions were right, but she subconsciously exposed herself and her thoughts.
With her projection.
Yes. So for me, it was like, okay, what do I do now? I had to think for a minute. I felt so many emotions going through.
Do you educate? Do you let it go? Do you want to engage? Do you want to save yourself that emotional labor?
Yeah.
And it's being done to you. It's being pressed on you.
Yeah.
You are living your life.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you have this choice. Because if you don't do it, will she do it to another person?
Exactly.
It's all of these choices that you have to make.
That's what I'm saying. Like, with what we do, we will always be like either one of the first people to experience these things, or we have to solve it for the others. So what I did is I called her up. Yeah. I actually Googled her, and I called her up, and we had a really good and honest conversation. And I also told her that she wasn't aware of her email. She actually thought that her email was good. And
she was like, I saved you.
I saved you.
Yeah.
And I told her how her email was received, how I received her email. And I also asked her, how many colored people do you have at the office? Because if I was your colleague as a Black girl, and you would ask me, should I send this email to another Black girl, I would have stopped you right there. But her colleague encouraged her to send that email.
Yeah.
So at the end of the conversation, she was like, wow, okay. Now she was really like, okay, I actually messed up. I'm so sorry. We even had coffee. It's a lovely woman. We had a lovely conversation. And we were also talking about, okay, so how can we solve this issue? Mm-hmm. Because if this is done to me, this has probably happened
a lot of other women.
Yeah. And Like we work in media, you work for TV, all these things. These are things that are happening
Constantly, every day.
You know, so for me, I think it is tiring. I am a bit tired, but that's also one of the reasons why I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to create my own platforms. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to face those issues, but at least
you have control over what happens. Yeah,
exactly. So is that also for you, even though you said you're writing, you wrote a novel? I write
for other people, yeah.
No, but your novel as well. Is that for you also one of the reasons why you're like, I want to tell stories?
This was mine?
Yeah.
Constantly being... when I see my text and it goes to a magazine, magazines tend to add things or subtract things.
Yes.
And due to their unconscious bias, another one of those terms, unconscious bias, they add the wrong things.
Yeah.
And things that expose how they, just like the Black Panther situation, how they perceive certain religious groups or certain people of color or et cetera, et cetera. With my book, it was mine.
Yeah.
I could do whatever. So that was a very...
proud moment.
Yeah, a moment of liberation, a moment of joy, a moment to celebrate what I find important in stories. So it's 36 vragen en heel veel koffie. It is in Dutch. And I was angry at this trope where Muslim girls with a headscarf met a white boy, took the headscarf off, end of story. And this happens in a plethora of shows and movies. Yeah, constantly. This is
where people just take off your...
No. Like the girl finds freedom in taking off her scarf.
Oh, okay.
That's her whole story.
Okay.
So that's Hala on Apple TV. A girl skateboards, wears a headscarf, meets a white boy, takes the scarf off at the end of the movie. Elite on Netflix. Girl, trouble with her brother and her family, meets a white boy, takes off a headscarf. The Society. Girl lives in a dystopia, takes off a headscarf. And it seems like these writers just want to save us. They want to save us from oppression.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I've taken off my headscarf in the past. That is a choice that you can make, and you should be empowered in that choice.
Yeah, okay.
However, where are the examples of girls that are very confident in wearing the headscarf?
Yeah.
And that's my problem with it.
Yeah.
So it would be as problematic and as noticeable if there were other examples. But this is clearly a pattern from writers that are not Muslim or don't have any experience with the Islamic faith, who kind of pander to this ideal of these girls need to take off their scarf so they can be free.
Yeah.
And it saddens me because I know the kind of joy of the confident Muslim woman that should be empowered to do anything.
Yeah.
To wear a scarf, not wear a scarf, have a relationship, not have a relationship, fall in love with someone of the same faith. Seems so controversial in fiction, yet happens every day. But also, you know, the phenomenon of black pain films, where it should always be about suffering. If you live in a janky neighborhood, then your life sucks. And I'm like, I want to write a film where a girl lives in subsidized housing, just like when I grew up, and she slays a dragon.
Yeah.
Why do only the rich kids get the cool adventures?
I know.
I want everyone to have a cool adventure.
Yeah.
Because you can't become what you can't see.
You are so inspiring. I really love this. This is so good. And how has your book been doing now?
She good. She living.
She good.
She's now on 4,700 people reading her. So I'm really excited. And we're working with the platform Wattpad to get the word out there, because Wattpad is a tiny community in Holland, but a very, very big international community. And we're working on the movie. So that's really exciting.
Whoa. And when will that come?
I have no idea. But that will be the first time where a Muslim girl, like in a romantic comedy, doesn't take off her headscarf.
Wait, now I'm actually thinking about something, because we had a conversation with Anna Drijver.
Yeah.
And she writes scripts now, and she was also saying like, oh, I would actually love to see a Moroccan family, but then like the Cosby Show before, obviously the whole and I was like,
Fresh Prince.
Yeah, like
let's take Fresh Prince.
Thank you, Fresh Prince. That's a good one. So I'm just making this connection now, but you never know. Like I feel like people really want to see different things, want to hear different stories. We want to see new writers.
We can have empathy. White people can have empathy for people of color. And that's constantly underestimated.
Yeah.
We as people of color are always presented with white stories as the norm.
Yeah.
So we can empathize with white characters.
Yeah.
However, when that's asked of white people, it's a gay film, a black film, a Moroccan film.
But that's why this year is also so challenging for them because and impactful, like you said, because everybody, black, white, I don't care, we all have to challenge ourselves. And this is especially for white people. They really have to like step out of the bubble they've been living in.
It's everyone against racism. It's everyone against discrimination, whether that be on the basis of skin color or sexuality or anything. Yeah. It's something that we do together. And it's such an exciting time. I always say, or like to remind people that inclusion is exciting. Yeah, it is joyful. It is happy. Mm-hmm. Reevaluating your identity and kind of curing yourself of all of these negative thoughts about other people is fun. Yeah, it's amazing. Learning about different things, you know, making a mistake, saying sorry, growing. And now on January 21st, we're getting Miskina, which is going to be the first.
January 21st.
Yes, of 2021.
Oh, yeah. So, I
can't believe that we're even going to make it to 2021. It's going to be the first romantic comedy of with an entirely bicultural cast.
In the Netherlands.
In the Netherlands, yeah. Very exciting. Yeah.
And you're part of this.
Yeah, so that's Sundos, Najib Hali.
Wow.
Nasruddin Shah, Miriam, Nora, Fedwa. All of these amazing names that make my,
that is so
make my screen crawl with happiness. And it's going to be directed by Daria Bukvic, and she's fantastic.
Is it also written by Moroccan?
It's co-written by Moroccan women. So,
That is really good. That is making an impact.
They did good.
That is making an impact.
I love
that, and I can't wait. Like, keep me up to date.
I will.
I've got 2 other questions for you. So you can pick one.
Thank you. I'm going in order. What 3 songs would be on the soundtrack of your life?
Since you participated in All Together Now.
Yeah. My life is a soundtrack sometimes. It's Blood Bank by Bon Iver, which is a gorgeous song.
You can sing, right?
A wee bit.
Would you? Do you mind?
it's sung by a man, so the song is way low. It's Last Hope by Paramore, and it's, I have to think about the third one. So it's Blood Bank by Bon Iver, Last Hope by Paramore, and it is, I don't know about the third one actually, because there's so many songs that at one point in my life were very important.
Okay, so tell me about the 2 songs that you selected now. Why are these your soundtrack, soundtrack of your life?
Last Hope has a line in it that I love, and it's, the salt in my wounds isn't burning any more than it used to. It's not that I don't feel the pain, it's just I'm not afraid of hurting anymore. Ooh. And it's an amazing line. Ooh. It's an amazing line. Because that's kind of the story of our life, right? Mm-hmm. We have these things and this salt that keeps rubbing and rubbing and rubbing, and it's not that you don't recognize it or accept it. It's just that you thrive through it. Yeah. And that's why I really love that song. It's a song that I put on every single time I feel like I can't do anything. Yeah. And then Blood Bank by Bon Iver doesn't make any sense. The lyrics are basically just gibberish. I don't know how he does it, but the arrangement of it makes you feel alive in a kind of way that only gibberishy songs can do. And just it is amazing. Justin Vernon is an amazing songwriter, and Bon Iver is an amazing band. I feel like there's a big discussion on, is it a band or is it not a band? Mm-hmm. But they have made songs like Skinny Love and Holocene, and they've, it's a big niche amongst kind of indie music loving kids. And Paramore has always been a band that surprisingly has a very big multicultural fan base. Okay. There's been articles on Medium like, why do black people love Paramore? And I've tried to convince Dutch publications to go, examine this band, because it's really kind of unique. It's this very American, southern punk rock band that is clearly resonating with bicultural kids, and we don't know why. And I find it absolutely fascinating. A friend of mine, Jean-Guy Macroy, who's a singer, who's our submission for Eurovision, we kind of bonded over our shared love for Paramore. Cool. And found it very kind of typical that, you know, us on paper, the pinnacle of diversity in the Netherlands, are a big fan of this very specific American punk rock band.
That is cool.
Yeah, and the third one I'd have to think, but those are the two songs that spring to
that's
mind.
fine. I have one more. Last question.
Thank you. Is social media isolating us or connecting us? Connecting us.
Yeah?
Yeah, definitely. When everything that we do in life is a choice. We can hypothetically, we can inflict pain with knives, or we can cook a delicious, beautiful 5-course meal. So anything with bad intentions can be used as a weapon.
Wow.
And social media for me is the exact same thing.
Yeah.
You have this choice of education, enlightenment, knowledge. You can reach anyone from Japan to Alaska.
True.
And that's such a big, beautiful thing that we can expand our horizon, connect with new people.
Yeah.
You know, take away some of these things that have been taught to us to be perceived as you know, facts.
Are you aware of, so yeah, obviously you are aware of the things that you put on social media. But do you like really think about it before you post? Yeah.
Anything from my cat to kind of big exposés on fiction cliches.
Yeah.
To me being very open and kind of, you know, discussing my dyslexia or discussing my mental health or stuff
I read that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I read that.
It's very important to me also because it demystifies television. My husband was watching De Wereld Draait Door, and I was sitting next to him eating a peanut butter sandwich, and he's like, I used to always think that people on TV were special, but now you're just sitting next to me eating a peanut butter sandwich. So it's not that special.
It's not that special.
And I'm like, exactly, that's it. It's just people.
It's so true.
The media is just a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Politics is a bunch of people. And we lose when we disconnect ourselves from the humanity of the people that have power over us.
Yeah.
They are just
like us.
people, just like us.
Yeah.
You are entitled as much to someone else's, you know, power as someone else.
But then, and I agree with that. But then you come on Dutch TV where millions of people watch it. So how do you, when you bump into somebody that recognize you, how do you make sure that you're still relatable, but also keep your own sanity?
Space and distance.
Yeah.
It's always, to me, everything is about demystification. There's this humbling dance of, you know so much about me, yet I know so little about you. Yeah. Even though you might be as interesting, you know, as they may think of me. Let's just say that. And so I always try to, you know, ask why my work resonates with them, why they like what I do.
Wow, so you really start a conversation with them, to get
that's
to know
so
them.
cool. Like, what do you think about the show? Like, are there bits and bobs? And I try to ask their name and what they do. And there was a girl that I ran into at a book presentation, and she was like, I want to work in TV. I want to work for the AO, which is like a Christian public broadcasting network. And I'm like, hey, you know, if it doesn't work with the AO, hit me up. Maybe I can, you know, get you an internship, or I know some people at the AO. Maybe I can, you know, give them a heads up about your work and what you do. Because I needed people to be where I am.
So true. And I try to do that as well, because I can imagine like people knowing us from the online world can look so
unapproachable, maybe.
Yeah, unapproachable. They probably have an image of who we are. So when you meet them in real life, it's always important to connect. That's what I try to do as well. Well, last but not least, my last question. Is there something that you're working on now that you would love to share with us? I mean, the people are watching and are listening, so definitely use this platform.
Yeah, I'm definitely most active on my Instagram. So that's at Samya HAFSAOUI, like my full name. And that's why I post all the things that I'm working on, or every single link and stuff like that. And I think the most important thing, speaking of media, is people see us in these moments, these recorded moments of who we are, and who we are 5 years later might be extremely different. Sure. And we always try to be as educated as possible with the things that are provided to us. Yeah. So we live in a time where we give and take with grace. So sometimes we accept things, mistakes, emails. Yeah. And sometimes we make them, and sometimes we apologize, and we move forward and we go on. But the thing with social media is you can broadcast that evolving process.
Yeah.
You take people in the process, and that's something I love. And with my work, and maybe a movie that I make now that I'm convinced is a good choice is not a good choice in 5 years.
Yeah, I think we just have to appreciate and trust the
process,
journey, the process, and love it as well. Because I hear a lot of people talking about they don't want to talk about how they started. They don't want to be that person anymore. Like for me, I started as a blogger. So if you go on my page, you'll definitely see those blogging days. And I'm just like, oh my God, I cannot even think. Like, obviously, I still work as an influencer, but not in a different way now. I don't, like, before every Saturday, I would shoot content in the city. And I'm like, I don't even have the time to do that, you know? So if people now say, oh, are you a blogger or an influencer? I would, in the beginning, I was just like, no, I'm not. But now I appreciate it because that's definitely what brought me here today. So yeah, I think that's really beautiful. Like you said, people get to see the journey, and as long as we keep on sharing that, people can also see that, you know, it's not just a one day thing.
It's not just the interviews, the successes, the celebrations. It's the tears and the pain and the hard work, and trust the process.
Yeah.
And trust people around you. Yeah. Make sure you create a safe and healthy environment so you can thrive in your creativity.
Yeah.
And we are just as complex as any other people.
Yeah.
So, you know, as long as we imagine ourselves complexly and imagine other people complexly, we can, you know, tap into that human connection that we all should have. Thank you so much. Thank you.
That was so nice for just the end. And yeah, I love this conversation. I really think you're such an interesting person, and I'm looking forward to see all the projects that you're working on. Like you said, like they should follow you. Say it again so that people can.
At Samya Hafsaoui. It might be.
Yeah,
here.
It might be
here somewhere floating on the screen. Yeah,
probably. But we're definitely, for the people listening as well, who are not watching this video, we're also going to put it in the caption. So you definitely have to follow Samya.
Thank you so much for having me. You are wonderful.
Thank you. I hope you guys loved it. I hope you loved it too.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable.
Yeah, I mean,
shout out to this couch.
It's made.com. Yes, definitely. Thank you, May.
Thank you.
Okay.